One other subject we must touch on, which is Iran, because of your new book, which I mentioned earlier. It looks to an outsider as though Iran has been behaving more rationally on this subject in the last 2 or 3 weeks. There is, it would seem, a move afoot in the Iranian government. Do you think so?
Well, I think Iran, if there was a Nobel Prize for smart diplomacy, they should get it. Meaning, not because their intentions are hideous. They have hegemonial ambitions against the Persian Gulf Arab states, and they have ambitions against Israel. But they have brilliantly outmaneuvered the West. Remember, there are 5 UN Security Council resolutions that have been adopted since 2006 that call on Iran to immediately suspend the enrichment of uranium. That should have been the subject during the month of October. What became the subject in the month of October? This new clandestine enrichment facility that now the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN watchdog, wants to inspect. So we've shifted the subject.
And they've agreed to that.
Fine, they have another half a dozen facilities probably, and not just that one. But the point
so you think probably they have got 5 or 6 more?
Various facilities. There's some evidence out there in the public domain that they have other facilities. But my point is this: they've shifted the discussion from stopping their main manufacture of uranium at the Natanz enrichment facility to this new facility near Qom. And therefore, they've gotten the whole international community off the main issue, which the UN Security Council insisted upon over the last number of years.
So at this point in the proceedings, what does Israel do? I mean, in what situation would it feel condemned to take military action?
Well, I don't want to go down the road of the Tom Clancy scenario of when is Israel going to take a move. But I'll say this: the general Israeli assumption at the elite level in Jerusalem is that Iran is a threat not just to Israel, but to our entire area. Remember, the insurgency in Afghanistan, which UK forces and United States forces have to deal with against the Taliban, is being supplied by Iran. Remember that in southern Iraq, the Shiite militias have been trained and supplied by Iran. Iran has been active in Egypt, where a cell of 49 Hezbollah members, some with associations with the Quds Force, was found by the Egyptian intelligence. And in the Gulf itself, just this year in 2009, individuals very close to the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, have said that Bahrain is a province of Iran, not an independent Arab kingdom, but it actually belongs, it's Iranian sovereign territory. Now, with that kind of complex that's occurring of Iranian intervention across the region, you know what, even in northern Yemen today, this would give an expectation on the Israeli side that there are strong international interests to see that the Iranian race for a nuclear weapon be halted. And we are still hoping that the international community will act and act effectively, even though in our judgment, it's 5 minutes before midnight, before they cross the nuclear threshold.
And if you decide, if Israel decides that it's in fact 5 seconds to midnight, you would probably have to strike first, wouldn't you? To do it effectively.
You know, I used to be the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, and I was always trained to never get into operational details when I was in an official position. I don't think it's proper for me to speculate about how Israel would defend its security interests, but Israel knows how to defend its interests. The point I'm making, it's not just Israel's interests that are affected. 3 islands belonging to the United Arab Emirates are occupied by Iran today, have been militarized by Iran. The Iranians are now building a naval presence in the area of the Strait of Hormuz, not just inside the Gulf, but actually moving out of the Gulf towards Yemen and the Horn of Africa. This is a growing military power that wants to dominate our region. And it may be that President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad talks about wiping Israel off the map, but in his mind are many other countries that I think are much more in the front line than Israel.
So you think there can be a solution to this problem without military action? The problem of Iran?
I believe the biggest problem we have is that the Iranians sit back in Tehran and think that the world is incapable of action. You know, there are mistakes that are being made in Western diplomacy. For example, the G8 back in July made a statement that Iran has until September, till the next meeting of the G20 in Pittsburgh, to come up with an effective proposal for dealing with questions about its nuclear program. There was no serious proposal put forward by Iran, but the West had drawn a line in the sand in September. September came, September went, and nothing happened. Now, what does that do to the leadership in Tehran? If somebody is thinking, you know what, we have to be careful with the West, we could really put ourselves in a dangerous position, those who are more militant can say, the West, paper tigers. This is our problem. What is important now is for the key powers in the West, the United States, the UK, France, Germany, Japan, and others, to illustrate to the Iranians that they are serious about what they're saying. They're serious about UN Security Council resolutions on stopping the enrichment of Iranian uranium. If that doesn't happen, if that seriousness is not conveyed, Iran will just get worse. And the problem we're facing in 6 months will be much worse than what we're facing now.
And there is no such thing, you would say, although some people have tried to be optimistic in the last 2 or 3 weeks, but there is no such thing as Iranian good intentions.
You know, Iran has proven itself repeatedly. Iran is active in Lebanon. It's active, as I said before, in Egypt. It's active in the Gaza Strip. In the Gaza Strip, you have Hamas members leaving Gaza, going to a Revolutionary Guard base outside of Tehran for training, and then coming back to build a Gaza army. This is happening all over our region. So it's not like if Iran was a status quo power, and if Iran said, you know what, we just want to be left alone. We don't want to be invaded by Americans, by British soldiers. We just want to have progress for our society. That would be one thing. But when you have a country which is a hegemonial power, which seeks supremacy, and which you can see in the statements by the leaders of the Revolutionary Guards and by the civilian religious leadership as well, that is their ambition, you can't trust a country like that with a nuclear program on the scale that they are developing.